Jones is cautious, all right. He was one of my brightest lads. A swell flyer. Always used his head.
I don't get it. If Jones had used his bean, how come the gentleman is a guest of mine?
Well, that's just the point. It wasn't Kerry Jones. It was...
Pilot McGuire, 14637 of Maxwell Tower.
Yep, that's McGuire, all right, coming in for a landing. He's too high, but he's coming in just the same. Hey, that ground came right up and slapped him in the face. Well, he's finally safe and sound on old terra firma. But after that bumpy arrival, McGuire ought to make a little checkup. Aha, a sprung landing gear.
Pardon me, sir. Is everything okay? Oh, yeah. Fine. Okay.
Now, there's a pilot full of foolish pride. He saw that he had damaged the landing gear. But it isn't always what you see that's important. It's what you don't see. And what McGuire didn't see was the injury to the wing. That's why he should go directly to the operations office and report the damage he had caused. That's the safest check. Report the damage.
Captain, that landing I made, I leveled off too high and dropped in. I got out and looked around and found I had sprung the right landing gear attachment fitting.
Make sure it's reported on Form 1.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's what McGuire should have done, but he didn't. Instead, he was too proud to go into the operations office. He was ashamed to admit the fact that he had damaged the landing gear with a clumsy landing. So what did he do? He wandered across the grounds, taking his time, came to the operations office, and decided to skip it. Yes, he just kept on nursing his pride and headed for his car. He's got a twinge of conscience, all right, and well, he should. There's no place in the Air Forces for a flyer who puts vanity before human lives. There's Kerry Jones, McGuire's pal. Hey, McGuire! And that's the irony of it. Kerry Jones took off in the very same plane his pal McGuire had damaged. But how much damage? Well, that's what McGuire didn't see. His bad landing had injured the wing structure. So there was Kerry Jones flying along out to test a new accelerometer. And Kerry put the plane into a vertical dive, never realizing that his wing had been weakened. This is what happened. Yes, it was sabotage, all right. Kerry Jones was sabotaged by his best friend.
Pardon me for interrupting, sir, but...
Say, how'd you get in here?
Who, me? I'm 100% American. I love my country, and I'm patriotic. Confidentially, the draft board nailed me.
What do you want, Angel?
Would you please okay that entry?
Lieutenant Edward Sloan. Did he just register?
Yes, sir.
Take him over to the officers' club and introduce him to the fellas. No. Find out if he's a short snorter. Lieutenant Sloan. Anyone you know, Joe?
Eddie Sloan? Sure. Don't you remember? I wired you last night to reserve a room for him. I knew he'd be checking in today.
You knew?
Sure. I happened to be in the operations room yesterday. It was one of those busy mornings crammed with work. Pilots were in and out, all having a final look at the Airways bulletin board, because it lists all obstructions and new developments at other airports. No pilot takes off on a mission before consulting that bulletin. That is, no pilot except Lieutenant Sloan. Guess he wasn't in the mood that day. I remember stopping. Hey, Eddie. Where are you headed for?
Oh, me? Why, I'm taking our new observation plan up to Bolton.
Don't you think you better check the airways bulletin?
Nah, I just got back from Bolton. I know that feel like my own backyard.
He knew that feel like his own backyard. Yeah, it's a common ailment, Pete. Yet it's a cardinal rule in flying safety. Never take off for a field until you consult the Airways bulletin board.
Otherwise, you'll wind up whaling the Airways bulletin board blues.
Blue, good fighting blue, good fighting red, white and blue. There's a guy in the sky and my heart's beside him. He's traveling high with my love to guide him. Giving no devils that do, that's the red, white and blue.
What goes on? One minute we're in pilot's heaven. Now we're suddenly in the middle of a Broadway musical show. And every seat is filled. No, not every seat. Oh, yes, I remember. Pilot Andy Brown and his wife had tickets for tonight. But his tickets are in the box office just going to waste. Andy couldn't make it. Why? Because his carburetor iced up on him. And if you don't believe it, look who's come to the show in Andy's place. It's Mr. Carburetor himself. You see, Andy forgot to check his carburetor temperature gauge. And that's why Mr. Carburetor is still shedding icicles. Now listen to what he has to say.
If I was running this show, here's what the next act would be.
Gentlemen, there will be fewer carburetor icing casualties if you'll just remember that this gauge is your friend to warn you of possible icing conditions. A carburetor is in effect a small refrigerator. Ice may form in its throat at outside air temperatures as high as 29 degrees centigrade, particularly if the air is moist. But ice will surely form if the temperature within the throat of the carburetor is in the vicinity of freezing. The danger zone lies between the minus 10 degrees and 3 degrees centigrade, and is marked in red on most instruments in use. The desirable carburetor air temperature is just above the danger zone, between 3 degrees and 5 degrees centigrade, and is usually marked in green. While any temperatures above 3 degrees are safe, it is best to bear in mind that higher carburetor temperatures are not desirable due to the loss of volumetric efficiency. You got it? Okay, remember it.
Come over here, Joel. Looks bad. Looks like I'm going to have another tenant. One of your pilots is going to get himself into trouble. I don't like his attitude. Have a look, Joe.
This is a handy gadget you got here, Pete. Make a nice bomb sight.
No, not that apartment window. Joe. I mean the operations room. Look at that pilot.
Oh, sure, I see him. That's Frank O'Connor.
Here's your contact clearance. And listen, Lieutenant, you have an instrument rating. So if you run into any bad weather, don't be proud. Turn around and come home. Remember, if you're in doubt, make a 180-degree turn and head back.
Yes, sir.
Did you pipe that fair weather pilot telling me? I can handle this.
Yeah, he can handle this. Sure, nothing to it. A mighty confident lad. Well, he seems to have good flying weather. Not a cloud in sight. Say, take a look at that sky now. Those are mighty interesting cloud formations, all right. Looks like Frank is going to have him a little radio music. Now, with a good radio program, Frank asks for nothing more. Yes, he sure seems to be a jolly character. Those clouds don't seem to bother him. Okay, Frank, but we're keeping our fingers crossed just the same. Just in case. Yup, sure enough, looks like a little bad weather is in the neighborhood. No wonder Frank's losing that happy smile. Do you remember what your operations officer told you, Frank?
You have an instrument rating, so if you run into any bad weather, don't be proud, turn around and come home.
Decided to make the turn and head home, but he waited too long.
Pilot telling me I can handle this.
Turn around, use your beam. It went in one ear and directly out the other. 'Cause there wasn't a thing in between. No, he was bold. He was bold. He was bold. He was bold. Now they're scraping his plane off the trees. So if you want to grow old, better do as you're told. Turn at 180 degrees.
Well, we certainly know where we are now. Young cadets in full parade. The youthful hope and pride of the Army Air Force. And we mean it. Yes, they're the best young flying blood in the world. But if you think these cadets are good, then you haven't met that fella yet. His name is H.P. Showoff. H.P. is hot pilot to you. He's just waiting for those cadets to get out of his way so he can swing into a little action. Now we'll let you in on something. H.P. is one of the slickest, sharpest daredevils in his outfit. He's going upstairs now, and we ought to get the inside on how flying is really done. Yes, H.P. Showoff is probably the most sensational flyer in the country. And if you don't believe it, just ask him.
Gas on. Switch off. Throttle set.
Gas on, switch off, throttle set.
Now let's just watch this takeoff. He's diving back on the airport just in case some of the boys didn't see him the first time. Very neat. And what do you suppose is next? Tricks at low altitude? That's dangerous. Because he's one of those pilots with a bag full of luck. Looks like HP has something else up his sleeve. Yup, those trees down there are a great temptation. He just can't resist it. Head copping is his meat. Ah, going to pick him a few oranges. Then back to tree trimming. And now, just for a laugh, he's dusting off some peach trees. Brother, he's close enough to feel it. That's a friend of his flying that L-1. Now he's going to pay his pal a return visit just to tease him a little. Look at that. HP has quite a sense of humor. How to win friends and influence pilots. He's in his stride now, riding that Bronco. Got to say adios. There will now be a brief pause while HP makes up his mind what to do next. No sooner said than done. A nice flip over and he's on his back again. Ah, high tension wires, HP's favorite outdoor sport. Watch him make a bolt for the voltage. Well, hold on to your horseshoe, HB. What a close call. Yup, he's heading for that highway. He sees a sucker down there driving a car. He's going to get that citizen a few thrills. HP can do better than that, so he's going to practice up by riding down the fence and clipping those hills. Oh, we get it. That's where HP's girl lives. Cute, huh? Here he comes. Sweet and low. And she seems mighty proud of her hero. And now, back to his normal position, upside down. And touching things off with a nice, slow roll. Of course, it's just possible that HP is showing off. The girlfriend is all aflutter as HP flies through the air with the greatest of ease.
What's this, honey?
But he's a great boy for gilding the lily. So, he's going to come back a diving and a rolling. Too bad. He had a bag full of luck. But luck is precious stuff. You've got to use it sparingly. And H.P. Showoff was a great pilot. Yeah, he was. He didn't have a chance, Pete. Doing acrobatics at low altitude is a fool's business.
It is now 1300. 1300. Not that anybody's going anyplace.
Well, I'm going somewhere. I'm way past due now. Got to be getting back.
I hate to admit it, Joe, but I'm all steamed up about this safety business.
I hope a lot of pilots are steamed up. So long, Pete.
Oh, Joe, aren't you forgetting something?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Pete. I almost forgot.
Thanks, Joe. I wish we could get your brand up here, but deliveries. Priorities, I guess.
Well, I'll be shoving off.
So long, Joe. Oh, don't forget my housing problem, and keep after those pilots.
Now look, fellas, let's face it. This is our business. Safety in flying. That's what we've got to concentrate on every second we're in that plane. Okay? Okay. So let's get on that beam and remember. Remember your checklist. Don't touch that throttle until you check every item. And Form 1, read it twice, like a love letter. And you won't find yourself taking a dive for that 8-ball. Now about stretching a glide. The fellows up in pilot's heaven feel this way about it.
Never stretch a glide. 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 Never stretch a glide.
Yeah, that's a golden rule. Never stretch a glide. And before I forget, Mr. Oil Temperature Gauge. Remember him, the fellow with the last word.
Never take off on a cold day until I'm plenty warmed up.
Take the hint, fellas. Learn and live. On the matter of damage to your plane, always report it. If your landing gear is haywire, report it at once to your operations officer. Don't do a McGuire and sabotage your best friend. Carelessness is sabotage. Negligence is sabotage. In war, there's only one place for you to be, on your toes. Remember that when you make a landing. It's all right to relax, but remember, as long as the wheels are turning, you're still flying that plane. Remember Pilot Nonchalant? Now listen to him.
You haven't made a landing until the wheels cease rolling.
Your job is to kill the enemy, not yourselves. If you want to be among the living, watch every instrument, every gauge, your carburetor gauge. Check it constantly and it won't ice up. And here's something else, the Airways Bulletin Board. Good pilots remember it. Others. To stay alive, you've got to act alive. Don't carry your daydreams into the cockpit. No one but a dope dopes off. Like Joe Pilot with the silly puss. Dreaming about last night's date, you do a lot of things. Like forgetting to lower your landing gear. Learn and live. If you don't, you won't. And you won't if you fly into bad weather against orders. If you can't fly on instruments, remember. Always remember one of the most fundamental rules of safety. If you see the weather closing in, then make a 180-degree turn and head back. And we go all the way back to Adam and Eve for this one, forbidden fruit. But the pilot's forbidden fruit is not an apple. It's acrobatics at low altitude. Remember H.P. Showoff, the pilot that does anything for a thrill, including breaking his own skull. Yes, it's a contestant. Just remember that if you're thinking about acrobatics at low altitude. Now, all you fellows with propellers in your pants, don't think that what you've just seen doesn't apply to you, because it does. Every one of you. There's no rule in flying safety that you can ignore. Here's what your commanding general has to say about it.
Pilots and aircraft never seen over Burma, Berlin, or Bataan are daily being lost. Unfired guns, unused bomb racks, these are being lost. Not in enemy lands, but in the quiet American countryside. Pilots, crews, and airplanes must be delivered to battle, not left in smoking heaps in cornfields from California to Maine.
Yes, that's the way our commanding general puts it, and he means it. The responsibility is yours. Fly with safety. That's your #1 job. Fly with safety. Remember it. Do it.